Mike Owens with Inside Fighting here, joined today by two-time UFC heavyweight champion Frank Mir. Frank, great to sit down and chat for the first time. How are things with you today?
I'm doing very well, man. Thank you.
I've got you on today to talk about the upcoming UFL 5 show taking place next Friday night, Arizona versus Las Vegas. How are your emotions ahead of UFL's return?
Um, I'm excited to get back out there. It's weird. I'm in a different. I've been normally doing the commentary for the shows, so now doing the coaching aspect of it. Different hat on. And then also nervous because of the team aspect of Vegas versus Phoenix. There's a lot of pressure. I feel that Las Vegas is more of an MMA town. We're more, we're the fight capital of the world, so more pressure in that aspect of it as far as representing and upholding what we should be able to pull off.
I was going to try and explain the UFL's system for next Friday night, but I thought given having you on it might make sense for you to explain. So talk us through a little bit of the setup regarding the coaching, the point system, and ultimately the prize at the end.
Yeah, well, basically the winning team is a $50,000 prize. So it's kind of like the bag at the end, to try to allure people for the motivation. But I was the very original concept that I'd gotten together with Harrison on when we did the first fight show we ever did together. It was a freedom fight night. And if you watch back then, it was Quentin versus Tito, and it was teams with point aspect. And the reason why I thought to do that was because the UFC is the UFC. No one's going to beat them at that. But you can get different leagues that have different niches. The Legacy is a phenomenal league for the B-level talent that's going on their way up to the UFC. PFL's done great at doing the whole, tournament style. You kind of watch throughout the year what guys doing what point wise, and then, into that you get $1 million bonus. But I've always known that, especially because of Conor, made me realize man, the fight fans come and go. It depends if you have a fighter that you respond to. You respond well. But I was watching how many people from Ireland would come over and watch Conor. I'm like, yeah, once he's gone, these guys aren't flying over here. You know what I mean? Like, it ain't gonna happen. He brought the island of Ireland over. I was like, well, how in the future can we keep it to where people stay together? And I started looking at different sport franchises. You have the NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA. Regardless of who plays for the Lakers, if you're a fan of the Lakers, you're a ticket season holder. So how can we keep that team aspect into MMA? And I know they tried it once before, but I was like, well, if you look at college wrestling, that's probably the closest thing we have in combat sports. That whether you have a guy that still goes to Iowa, if you're a Hawkeye fan, they still fill up the arena and duels for 60,000 plus, Penn State, Minnesota, Ohio, all these different colleges just have huge following, regardless of who's on their roster. So that's basically where the concept came from, is that, we can do city versus city and then have a roster of fighters. And that way, if you're a fan of the team itself, on top of obviously having fighters, if you know them and you follow them and they join your team, you can be a fan of. And then having to how they win also pushes up the aggressiveness aspect of it. A win in the first round is much greater than a win in the second round, or even a win in the third round, or just winning a decision is only 1 point. For every round you can take off, you get an extra point towards your team.
100%. And talking about the teams, as I mentioned, your team captain for the Las Vegas bracket, are you working directly with the guys in the preparation for this, for the fights, or are you just working with them on fight night?
Mostly 2 weeks ago, we all got to get together a little bit, and now just kind of testing for who their opponents are, because things have changed and things switch up at times. So saying, hey, does your coach realize this guy is this or that? Hopefully that'd be the dream later on, that the one team works out of a gym. But just like Henry has to deal with, or I have to deal with, we have a lot of our fighters in multiple different gyms. We're pretty much splitting them down the middle with in my facilities with Randy's and Extreme Couture and Syndicate with John Wood. So it's kind of hard at this point to tell guys hey, I know you've been with this guy for so long, but now I'm going to take over and jump in. And I don't know if that's the most beneficial. I think really where my opponent's going to come in is more strategy leading up. When all of a sudden it's fight night, it's just like, okay, look, we're up by this many points, or we're down. I need you maybe to adjust your game plan here. It isn't just winning, And sometimes it'll be a guy go out there and be like, hey, as long as you don't get knocked down in the first round, once you go around the first round, they can't close the gap. And then in the second, third round, do what you want to do. Now you've secured the team win. So when it comes to any kind of strategy like that, the coaches, I don't know if they'll be looking at the totality of it that way. They're looking at their individual athletes. Kind of a specialist coach in a football game. He's just looking at you, and then the head coach kind of trying to look at the overall aspect of what's going on.
What do you make of coaching against Henry Cejudo, former UFC flyweight bantamweight champion? He's become this celebrity coach in his own right. I see that a lot of high level talent fly over to Fight Ready in Arizona to receive work from him. So what do you make of coaching against?
Oh, I think Henry's an extremely sharp guy, man. He's smart. We've sat and had conversations before. We've exchanged ideas in coaching. I think sometimes his could be a little over specialized, but maybe for the talent that he works with, that can help. I remember we were having a conversation. He was like, his practices, he levels them 1 through 10 on different levels of intensity. I'm like, man, that's a lot of detail between a 1 practice and 10 practice. I was like, I do something similar. It's 1 through 3. It's walking, jogging, sprinting. That's pretty much how I look at it. I tell people like, hey, today's going to be a 1, which is a walking type practice, very intellectual, very talking, walk through. 2 might be a jog. We're breaking sweat drills, active reading. 3 is, okay, we're going live. Like, it's on, and then even with that, I guess there could be relatively, hey, it's on, but like, let's protect yourself, or, which I don't know. I don't ever really go beyond that. I think that's silly in practice to leave in the gym. I see too many injuries. When people say, we're going to go serious, because sometimes when I ventured in the world of boxing, that's one thing I saw when we go there and spar. There were some days we spar, you didn't talk to the guy. You walked in, it didn't matter if you were friends or not, and it was a war leading up until someone got hit hard enough that they stopped sparring. I didn't see I realized why boxers age out a lot sooner than MMA fighters.
What happens if the night's a draw? Do we see the coaches battle it out? Do we see you Cejudo get in the ring for a second main event?
That was my idea. I have a 150-pound weight advantage, No, actually, what it comes down to is time in the ring. So again, who's the most aggressive? If total amount of time he has, an hour and 5 minutes with the fighters, and I have, an hour, and 4 minutes, then the least amount of time in the ring with your 5 fights accumulates the winner.
100%. And memory serves, there's a $50,000 prize fund to split between the team.
Yeah, between the fighters.
Yeah. So
5 fighters, each guy's expecting a $10,000 bonus.
Yeah,
if he wins.
We'll be back to the interview in just a second, but first and foremost, college football is finally back, and Inside Fighting have partnered with DraftKings to bring you an incredible new offer. New DraftKings customers who bet $5 will receive $200 in bonus bets instantly, just by signing up using promo code Inside Fighting. Enjoy. So, for those who don't know or maybe unaware, UFL is very much a fighter-first organization. You can talk to me a little bit about it, but talk to me about some of the benefits that the UFL offer to their fighters.
Well, we very does have the moniker of fight with us, not for us. I realize that all people, look, a lot of other companies, I don't blame them as much now as I did when I first got into this, because it's hard to make money in a fight promotion. So there's not a lot of money to go around. But then when promotions start gaining steam, I think that they don't necessarily share. To our fault, but thank goodness that Harrison has come up with different ideas to make it work. We came out very hard to make sure we were fair to begin with. Too fair, to the detriment of actually us. But having the fighters have health insurance, having the fighters have a share in the company itself, different aspects of it that I wish that I had done that, if the UFC had done something like that, or some of the other big organizations, where would my life be now? And I don't want any of these young guys or women to go back and look at it and go, I feel taken advantage of. I feel that, I always tell people this story. I have no problem showing up somewhere for $5,000. Go down, cool, $5,000 for 2 or 3 hours. That's good money in anybody's book, I feel. But if about 6 months later I find out that the person got paid $5 million for me to show up, and I got $5,000 out of it, the cost of that $5,000 just doesn't look as good, And I remember the first time I started having those thoughts, because before I was very much pro in all things. But then when I saw that, during the Brock Lesnar fight, how many pay-per-views we sold to how much we sold the pay-per-views for, I knew how much I made, which I didn't even break into the 7 digits. And then I'm seeing Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury selling less at the same amount of money. I was like, wow, our fight generated more money than their fight generated. how come those guys are making multiple millions each and I didn't see a single million? So that's what I started realizing, okay, transparency is going to be the key to making sure everybody feels comfortable with everything. So that's another thing that we've just done with our company is just making sure we take care of the fighters. We're transparent. The other thing that I'm a big fan of is not holding anybody slavery to the independent contractor concept. I always thought that was kind of weird, and now people have gotten in trouble for it. And that's what a lot of class action lawsuits are based off of. Is that if you're an independent contractor, tell people like this: if you work for me and you're a handyman, like that's fine. You can work for me, but you have to sign this contract. And now when I have work, you can work. But when I don't have work, you can't work for anybody else. You have to sit on the bench. And now, if you do work for somebody else, you're in trouble. You know, I thought that was crazy. I mean, I get that once a bout agreement signed, you have work for me, and I sit there and go, hey man, I'm sorry, I'm going to go over here. Like, no, I get preferential treatment. You signed with me. Totally understand that concept. That's pretty much how we run our company. If any of our guys call us up and say, hey, I got something coming up, and we don't have nothing for them, by all means, like, thank you for the courteous call, keeps us in the loop, what's going on, helps us figure out what we're doing with our stuff. But as far as telling somebody that, no, we don't want you to go fight for somebody else, we have you in the contract, that to me just never sat right in my belly, you know? And with me having the next generation, my kids are all in the sport. I see the young women and men in the gym. I've always just wanted to be more of a voice for change, for the betterment of it than the detriment. Just take advantage of. I've never wanted to be that guy that's like, all right, you complained about it when you're on that side of the fence, but now that you're in management, now it's okay because now you benefit from it, right? I'm like, I don't want to be that guy.
Because there was a fantastic kind of piece that you put out, I think, before the last show. The kind of title of it was "So You're an MMA Fan," and it was yourself and Rampage kind of voicing over this clip, talking about all the benefits of the UFL. When you reflect on your career, how do you reflect on first of all the way you were treated, but also from a monetary and from a benefit standpoint, what you got out of it, if you will?
Well, I think at a lot of the beginning of the fights, and that's what the UFC really does, and a lot of winners, I probably was paid more than I was worth. No one knew I was. So as far as me building up a name, I was blessed in that way. But if you equate the amount of money I lost out on once I had a name, it didn't even out. You know what I mean? And then that's probably one thing that keeps me is the coaching aspect of this, is that I really didn't understand MMA when I was at the peak of fighting. You know, I mean, hell, when I fought for the UFC heavyweight title of the world, I had a gi jiu-jitsu practitioner as a head coach. You know, nobody in my staff had ever fought an MMA fight in their life. I tell people to be like, imagine you went to an NFL game and you ask the quarterback, so, hey man, so who's your coaches? Well, that guy over there that plays rugby, he helps me run around in the field. And that guy over there that played baseball, he teaches me how to throw. Wait a minute. They're similar, but like, those aren't the same things, buddy. You know what I mean? Like, well, you know, we're going to piece make this together. Like, so you're training, you're just kind of figuring this out as you go. Like, yeah. I think a lot of us in the early 2000s were that way. You know, I remember historically hearing, Tito say, I train an hour and a half of wrestling, an hour and a half of Tito, Thai boxing and boxing and jiu-jitsu. It's like, but that's not MMA. You know, nowadays when you go into a gym and I train, it's either on the feet or on the ground. It's kind of like the way we differentiate it. And even there, it's okay, against the wall or on the ground or out in the open air. Is it more grappling orientated, small glove, or is it big glove orientated? We hit each other more. But at no point do we ever sit there and go, no takedowns. It's like, what do you mean there's no takedowns? You know, there's always takedowns. You know, and even on the ground, we never say, hey, you can't punch me. Like, what do you mean you can't punch me? This is an MMA fight. Obviously, we can accentuate different aspects of it, but the training and all the techniques have to go together. So that being said, I'm so inspired and more pressed with my daughter and my children and the students that I have to be able to pass on a much more complete version of MMA and actually show them. And sometimes, you know, it can be bittersweet. I'm like, man, if I had only known this shit when I was fighting, you know what I mean? Like, how much better would I have done? I was doing gi jiu-jitsu moves and pulling them off in fights, you know?
I do remember, if memory serves, because I caught up with Rampage before one of your shows last summer, and I remember a headline, you were going to fight on the card alongside your daughter. That was true, and do you still have interest in a return to
I
the
do.
competition?
I really do. Bella right now, though, is pursuing her college career. And so we always have a gap in the summer. She's going into her junior year. And last summer, we had a little bit of a gap. It just didn't work out. This summer, we tried the same thing to both be on the same card, and it just did not work out. Last year, it was because of Worlds. She went to Worlds, and so she got fifth or seventh, fifth place at Worlds. So understandable, you know. Then this summer we were in the clear, no competitions we're going to fight, but just could not put together a fight more because of her than for me. Just wasn't going to work out. And then also too, I stepped into the coaching role for out of necessity. I told her though that like even though right now I've been going to the gym and I feel good and I'm healthy and I'm as a 45-year-old could possibly be, time's not on my side. So I was like, Bella, we have about one more summer to make this work. If it doesn't work, we're gonna have to stop talking about it. It was like a shoulda, woulda, coulda, you know. We missed the window.
So if we speak this time next year and it hasn't happened, that's all. It would be close to your cutoff date.
Yeah, I think it's so. Just being realistic, because I'm 45 now. So I mean, next year I'm already seeing I'm 46. So we get to a point where people are going to start going, why? You know, I think right now the novelty of fighting with my daughter is enough to keep people somewhat interested. But pushing beyond that, it gets into like a safety issue, health issue of you know, who am I going to get to fight me? You know, that's pulling off. I don't know. Maybe I'm being more pessimistic about it, but that's just my mind's realistic.
I have to ask you about your old title over in the UFC because there's certainly a question mark around the heavyweight division at the moment. We have Jon Jones as the champion, who's seemingly going to fight Stipe Miocic in November. We have an interim champion in Tom Aspinall, who Jon Jones doesn't seem particularly interested in fighting. So what are your opinions on your old title and the landscape of the UFC heavyweight division?
I think Aspinall's a phenomenal heavyweight. I think he's going to be there for a while. With Jon, it's hard for me to tell people. I mean, the guy has earned so much. I feel like sometimes people have such a short memory in our sport. The guy has been one of the most dominant fighters of all time. If he wants to pick and choose who he fights, at a certain point, he kind of earned the right to. But, you know, he faces criticism, I guess, from other people. But as far as what settles in my stomach, well, I get it. On paper, 5 years from now, you know, Stipe is going to look just as good of an opponent as Aspinall did currently, you know, because look how people are short memory with him right now. Oh, he's not the GOAT and he's dodging Tom. Like, man, this guy fought everybody. He fought twice, you know, the next best guy in the world at light heavyweight, you know, in Daniel Cormier and beat him twice. His one loss is a DQ. There's nobody else that's really as dominant as Jon has and undefeated in MMA. He is the GOAT, you know, and he's moved up a weight class. He could have just finished his career at light heavyweight. For him to move up to heavyweight and did what he did, I mean, Gagne was super impressive. He made him look like he shouldn't even been fighting in the UFC, let alone fighting for a title. I don't count him out in a fight with Aspinall. I've trained with Jon. I know how he feels when he grabs a hold of you. I think Tom's hands could really be the X factor if we could catch him or not. Tom's, you know, striking is more powerful than a lot of the people and speed-wise in Jon's face. If Jon grabs him, though, I'm betting on Jon. I've seen him wrestle for too many years. I've felt what he feels like, and I cannot imagine what he feels like at 260.
What did Jon feel like when you trained and grappled with him?
I remember when I locked on to him as far as static strength goes, I've never felt anybody like that in my life. Wow. In fact, Jon has moves that he would do and would show afterwards, and he was only weighing 225, 230 at the time. Here's one memory I have. I'm in his guard, we're working. He grabs both my wrists. And I kind of sit up for a second, and I can't release his grip. He literally scoots his ass out, pulls his ankles behind him, and stands up with my hands in his, and I couldn't do nothing to stop him. I tried to drive forward, and I couldn't. He finally lets my hands go. And I remember I was like paused there for a second. I'm looking down at my hands like, there's no way you just did that. There's no way. And it got me into hand fighting a lot more from wrestling aspects of it. But he looked at me and goes, that's a great move, right? I'm like, Jon, there's nobody else in the world I know you could teach that move to that could probably pull that off. Like you have an unusually long arm build, your strength, your dexterity of your body, your legs, your hips. I'm like, nobody. I couldn't pull that move off on a white belt, let alone pull it off on another world-class fighter. You know what I mean? Like, so keep it. It's awesome. Do it. But like sometimes guys have the ability to do things that other people just can't.
Do you think with Jon it's a physical advantage, or do you think it's a mental advantage? Do you think he has, or is it both in many ways?
I think it's both. I think that Jon has an extreme physical advantage. He has a unique talent. I mean, think about it. Both of his brothers in the NFL were NFL caliber athletes. That being said, he was the middle brother of bookend on two NFL level athletes. So Jon wasn't the dominant athlete in his house. His older brother Arthur would kick his ass all the time. So then now you had a world-class athlete that had special abilities who also knew how to grind and how to lose and how to fight from behind and how not to have those advantages because his brother has every advantage he has plus some. So then you have a mental toughness that's such a unique situation. I think that the stars aligned on Jon for his mental toughness, for his physical attributes, to have the family that he had, the area that he grew up in, as far as what that brought to him in a cage fight for MMA, I think is extremely unique. You know, that mentality usually does not come with that athletic ability. Most guys as athletic as Jon are mentally weak. They get away with shit in the gym. They do it easily. And then the minute they face adversity, they fold. Not Jon. He's felt more adversity at home than he's ever felt in the MMA cage.
Would you favor Jon to beat Tom Aspinall at this stage, or do you feel like as time moves on, as Jon gets a little bit older, slows down a little bit, and Tom moves further into his prime, that could shift?
No, because Jon's style's never been about speed. If you've seen some of the guys that are quicker against him, even Vitor Belfort on his feet, Machida on his feet, Jon grabs you, you're in trouble. So Aspinall would have to make sure he doesn't get grabbed. I know Aspinall's a great grappling and submissions and whatnot, but as anybody can attest, it's hard to submit Jon. He's not easy to, get dominant position on, and he's that dominant wrestler. I mean, one time I was working with Cael Sanderson, who's the coach at Penn State, one of the most decorated wrestlers that we've ever had in the U.S., undefeated in college. And I had a conversation about Jon and him. I think Jon was probably in the news for something outside of his abilities inside the cage. And Cael didn't realize I was friends with him. He goes, "Oh yeah, man, I went to recruit that guy. I had him at my house and everything. I wrestled him in my." I was like, "Really? No shit. What happened?" He's all, "I said he could be the Olympic gold medalist. He was one of the best talents I've ever seen for pure wrestling." Wow. I was like, "Why didn't you recruit him?" He's all, "Oh yeah, no, he's a head case. Nope, not having him on the team." I was like, "No shit," and came to fruition.
Proven right, 100%.
Yeah, but I mean, so if you have somebody of that caliber say that, hey, that guy could have easily been the Olympic gold medalist. That's what the talent of his wrestling was.
Yeah, 100%. I want to move you on to one final topic before we finish, and it's very interesting that you're obviously team captain for Las Vegas, because I want to get your thoughts on the Craig Jones Invitational event that went down last Saturday night and its comparison to ADCC. Did you get a chance to watch one or either? And if so, what did you make of?
I got to watch both a little bit. I got to go for a little bit to the ADCC, but because of my schedule, I wasn't able to go to the Craig Jones. I was busy from about 6 o'clock to about 8 o'clock at night, both nights in a row. So I watched it on YouTube. I thought they're both. I think they're still Abu Dhabi is still great as far as promotions for the show, as far as what it is. It's still considered, I think, like the Olympics of MMA, or excuse me, of no-gi grappling. There was a lot of great talent to watch out there. I think that the Craig Jones Invitational has more of an idea of what it is for marketing. I definitely like the wedge better as far as the outsource of the ring, instead of just having to where people can just run out. You see injuries occur all the time. I've always hated that our mats are the way they are, because it leads to that type of damage. So I thought that was interesting. I still don't know. Like at times, I had a hit and miss about how I felt about the Gabby Garcia matchup. Yeah, I don't know. I still don't have an opinion on that. I've gone back and forth. It was like, well, everybody knew it was more of a spectacle, and it is what it is. It was kind of a joke, but then I was like, that's still a girl out there, a human being, and like I didn't kind of like some of the things being said, even if they were in jest. I don't know. Sometimes I can be an overly sensitive father. I have a daughter, so.
But we do see with some of the things we see in Misfits Box and some of the things like that, Craig Jones versus Gabby Garcia, we do see combat sports trending in that direction. Is that something that you worry about as a whole, that the things could go down that slippery slope where things get said that shouldn't be said, things happen that maybe people aren't comfortable with?
You know what? I mixed that up a little bit again. Sorry, I wish I could be more of a deliberate, straight answer. That's so political seeming. Just that I go back and forth because I realize it's viewership and spectators and having eyes on your product. Ultimately, that's what allows athletes to get paid and be taken, to have people watch. And I realized that, like, not everybody's like me and just watch two. Most of the time I don't even turn the volume on anything. I just want to watch two people compete. And maybe in hindsight I'll go and watch their breakdown of their match afterwards, see what they saw, what the other people saw. I'm a technician, so I'm enamored with just two people having combat. I'm a very small portion of the generation. If they had to make their money off of people like me, they'll all be broke. So I know that there's a necessary aspect of it that has to be involved. Just, you know, how much, as long as it doesn't take away from the sporting aspect of it, you know, is that's where I get scared at. Like, where's the line? And I really don't know where the line is. I don't think Craig Jones Invitational went over the line by any means. It just, the potential for what it could eventually be in the future if they see success with it is like, all right, you know, this was funny, I like it, but then it got serious again, and it's like, let's not get too crazy here, you know. You know, but I thought it was handled as well as it could possibly handle. I guess just the last match, like I was happy up until the Garvey Garcia match, and some, you know, the things we said on the side in jest and joke, I get it, you know, but you know, I found it distracting for me, and yeah. If it got people to watch, I guess it's great. But then, like, you know, there was a part of me that felt like, you know, like, what is she thinking right now? You know, like, is she okay? You know what I mean? Like, you know, how much of this is you know, because words are words, you know, and things still be said that can hurt her, and you know, like, I don't know. And again, I'm a dad, you know what I mean? So you know, there's been times I've had people say this about my daughter, and I'm like, I can find out where you live right now.
Yeah. I think that's the best place for us to end. So, Frank, thank you so much for your time. It was really great catching up for the first time. I've really enjoyed this. I wish you the best of luck with UFL 5 next Friday night, excuse me. Please tell people where they want to, where they can find it. And last but not least, if you and Henry do square off, please go easy on him.
Well, thank you so much.